multimedia to go and do something that is an empty shell, zero, nothing, online news. They should publish hard copy. Let's see how many they will sell. But why is that so? Because they are not doing the work. And we have been drawing attention to the poverty of journalism that they are conducting. And gradually people are seeing it, that this is not journalism. You don't come put cameras all over your body and come to my office and say you want an interview. No, we don't do that. You distill the story, you intellectualize it. So, I mean, we sit down here as news people, and then something happens. Kojo Chikata dies. And we think, wow, this is a new story. We're sorry he's dead. May his soul rest in peace. But we'll put up a documentary. People are NDC, they really don't like some of the things we do. People are NPP, sometimes they don't like some of the things we do. But you all watch the documentary and they tell us that was good work. Yes, that's what we want to hear. You will always have people who will take one side against a story, even if we're doing Nigerian elections and I think Tinubu should have won. Somebody thinks Peter Obi should have won. My thinking that Tinubu should have won will show in my analysis, even though I will announce it at the beginning to be fair to viewers, but it will show in my analysis. So somebody who wants Peter Obi to win may not necessarily like the analysis, which is okay. But he shouldn't be able to deny that this analysis is starting from A and is ending at B. We can see the trajectory of the analysis. That you started here, you ended here. We can disagree about your outcome and your conclusion, but we know that you did some work. So they don't do... Mr. Boboya, the reason why you need to talk about us so that your photograph comes is that you are doing poverty of journalism. Your journalism is so poor. That's why you sit down, you don't have a story. They don't have a story every day. They don't have it. We, by the grace of God, have been producing for 20 years, 3 times a week, 2 times a week. We've been producing news content. That's not simple. Look at the number of young people here working on this production. They sit down there. They have absolutely nothing. Tomorrow they'll go there. Nothing to do. There's nothing. Maybe they are waiting for some letter from GNPC where they have written that they heard that somebody has stolen money. So Freedom of Information Act to disclose what the GNPC is. That's what they do. That's not journalism. That has its place. There's nothing wrong with that, because we have to be guardians of the public purse. And that's why Akufo-Addo passed the Freedom of Information Act. There's no problem with that. But if that is all the journalism you have, you are going to find yourself poking at Good Evening Ghana just so that you can be seen. So that you can remind people that Mr. Boboya, I'm still there, or I've not gone anywhere. This is Mr. So you see his photograph. Mr. Boboya says this. Mr. Boboya says that. And then they say they have fourth estate, from which a person resigns, writes a letter. I don't want to work at multimedia anymore. I'm going to work at fourth, which is a zero shell standing there, empty bag. I mean, is that how people resign? Anyway. That's all I have to say about Aboboya and his people. It's 20 minutes to the top of the hour at 10 o'clock. And let me just give you a sneak. As I was talking about this story, I was chatting with my people. And it occurred to me that I was speaking to President Kufuor a few weeks ago about something else. And I promised him that I was coming to visit him in his Ebri residence. And so as I was talking, I said to people that this is one of the documentaries that we did that I was very happy about. Because we did this when President Kufuor was still alive. He's still alive. We did it when he was 80. We didn't have to wait like Kojo Chikata and others who had to die before we put a documentary together. And I was very eager about it. I think this 4 years ago or something like that. This is part of the work that we do. So we'll show it to you. We'll come back to the studio. We are analyzing tonight which of the 5 MPP presidential candidates will make it on the ballot in this month, August, when the New Patriotic Party goes to what they call the super delegates, which is something the MPP has introduced into the primaries contest in Ghana. NDC doesn't have that yet. Maybe soon they will have it. But the MPP says that if the nominations are closed and they have more than 5 candidates, they will go to a super delegates. In this particular contest, there was a disagreement about how the super delegates should occur. The party resolved it the other day at Alisa Hotel. You saw that we reported from there. And so now it's ready. Tonight, we'll be sharing with you our basis for saying that the 5 should be A, B, C, D, and E, and it shouldn't be F, G, H, etc. So wait for that analysis. It's our own analysis. You don't have to buy it, but we'll share it with you anyway. And then we will get to the big story about the West African insecurity. Now it's becoming a problem because the American government, State Department in Washington, D.C., is in direct contact with the rebels in Niger and is asking them to step aside. Will they step aside? What is the role of France? What is the role of Nigeria? On Thursday, ECOWAS leaders are meeting in Abuja with Mohamed Tinubu, Bola Tinubu, the Nigerian president, who is also the ECOWAS chair, to discuss what has happened since Sunday. News media all over the world were quoting on Sunday that the ECOWAS deadline has elapsed, and they were looking for what ECOWAS will do. Nigeria's Senate have already ruled, especially the northern senators. They've ruled against Bola Tinubu's idea of going into Niger with force. In Ghana, there's mixed feelings about it because many of our people who grew up in Burma camp with us remember ECOMOG Gambat 1, and nobody wants that experience again. They don't want another ECOMOG Gambat 1. A lot of our friends' fathers died in ECOMOG Gambat 1, and everybody thought that the ECOMOG Gambat 1 was hasty and that perhaps if they have waited a bit, we could have saved some of their lives. So out there in Burma camp, not with the soldiers, but with the civilians, the sentiments are clear that we don't want another ECOMOG Gambat 1. That has not yet come into the floor of parliament. But in Nigeria, it's found expression with the senators who are saying that no, they don't think Nigerian troops should go in. Okay, with that kind of situation, where does that leave the ECOWAS strength? Now, Bello will be here to tell us that. We'll do the MPP story and do the story. And we also have Mikael, who will be telling us about Threads, which is the Twitter of Mark Zuckerberg, and X, which is the Twitter of Elon Musk. We'll hear about that in a bit. But let's see that Kufuor documentary. If you appreciate it, tell us you like it. And I have some LPMs to do. Good evening again, and welcome to your favorite evening current affairs show. It's Good Evening Ghana.
Hello. We acknowledge the arrival of His Excellency, President of the Republic of Ghana, President John Agyekum Kufuor. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise.
John Agyekum Kufuor was born 80 years ago in 1938. He was born into royalty, into the 400-year-old Ashanti Kingdom in Kumasi in Ghana. Mr. Kufuor studied at Prempeh College and later at the University of Oxford, where he earned a bachelor's in political science, philosophy and economics. He later studied for the bar and was called to Lincoln's Inn before he returned to Ghana to take up his first job as KCC chairman. KCC meaning Kumasi City Council, the same as today's mayor of Kumasi. As faith and interest would have it, Mr. Kufuor joined politics and became a member of the Consultative Assembly that drew up the Second Republican Constitution in 1979. J. Kufuor was elected as a member of parliament under that constitution and became Deputy Foreign Minister at the age of 29. Here, Mr. Kufuor is seen in 1969 welcoming presidential guests to the inauguration of Prime Minister Kofi Abrefa-Busia. J.A. Kufuor's political career was, however, truncated by a coup d'etat led by this man, General Kutu Achampong.
As you go home, remember that the revolution continues unabated.
Politics returned in 1979, and once again, Kufuor was active. He won a parliamentary seat for the Popular Front Party in Ashanti. Here is Mr. Kufuor's own account of 1979.
The campaign was a bit mad because the executions and the baying for blood and those things were so new and strange, traumatic to Ghana.
Another coup d'etat ended the Third Republican Constitution. Mr. Kufuor retired to private business until politics returned in the late 1980s, culminating in the promulgation of the 1992 Constitution. Kufuor, the politician, was back in the saddle, and in 1996 he was elected for the first time as the leader of his party, the New Patriotic Party. Here is Ghana Television announcing the story to Ghanaians the day after Kufuor was elected.
Mr. J.A. Kufuor was elected presidential candidate of the New Patriotic Party at a National Delegates Congress of the party held in Accra yesterday. He polled 1,034 votes. Professor Albert Edubuahen, who won the candidacy in 1992, polled 711 votes, while Mr. J.H. Mensah, a minister in the Second Republic, had 110 votes. Dr. Jones Oforiatta, a deputy minister in the Second Republic, had 69 votes, while Dr. Kwame Safo-Edu, also a former minister, had 42 votes, with Dr. Jani Selby, a medical practitioner, trailing with 24 votes. In all, 1,997 out of the 2,000 candidates voted, while 7 voting cards were rejected.
The Congress started off without Mr. J.A. Kufuor, one of the aspirants. When he did come, the chairman of the party, Mr. Peter Ala Ajete, was delivering his speech.
What is important, ladies and gentlemen, is that at the end of the day, when one person emerges as our presidential flag bearer, all of us, in truth and honesty, to gird our loins and without denying or withholding anything from such a flag bearer, support him and back him to the hilt so that he will be accepted not just by our party, but what is more important, by the country at large.
Out of the valid votes cast, Dr. Dan Selby had 24 votes, which comes to 1.2%. 1.2% of the valid votes cast. Dr. Asafo Adu had 42 votes, and that amounts to 2.1 of the valid votes. Then Dr. Jones Oforata had 69 votes. That is 3.5%. Then Mr. J.H. Mensah had 110 votes, which is 5.5% of the valid votes. Professor Dubuahi had 711, and that is 35.7%. Mr. J. Kufuor had 1,034.
The losing candidates first pledged their support to the winner, Mr. J.A. Kufuor.
Naturally, I am disappointed, but I am not discouraged. Democracy is at work. The people have made their decision. We now have a leader of this party, and all of us who are committed NPP will put our energies and service at his disposal, work as hard as possible to ensure that victory comes to NPP 1996.
I would like to congratulate him and want to assure him that he can count on me. We should know that this is just a means to an end.
I would like to send my heartiest, warmest congratulations to Mr. J.A. Kufuor for winning so decisively and with such resounding results.
I am sure that with Mr. J. Kufuor holding the flag of the NPP for the coming presidential elections, and more importantly, since he believes he will try and foster this alliance and make sure that victory is won in December this year.
The contest is now history. And as is the tradition of our party, I resolve to work effectively with my colleague aspirants.
Being nominated as a presidential candidate is one thing, and winning the actual presidency is another task. How Mr. Kufuor is going to fulfill this ambition will depend on the Ghanaian electorate who go to the polls in December this year to exercise their franchise. As to whether he will be given the nod or not, well, time will tell. Francis Esu, GTV News, reporting.
Unfortunately, Mr. Kufuor lost the 1996 election, but his conduct on Inauguration Day won him many admirers within the Ghanaian body politic. Mr. Kufuor did the unthinkable. he mounted the stage to congratulate his rival, Flight Lieutenant Rawlings, in the full glare of the general public at Ghana's Independence Square. Ghana television commentator Edward Fachi was pleasantly surprised.
This is a very historic moment. J.A. Kufuor goes to congratulate President Rawlings, and there you see Mrs. Kufuor. President Rawlings shaking hands with Dr. Edward Mahama. And isn't this a wonderful moment? You can see Mr. J.A. Kufuor.
Destiny had fully come, and Mr. Kufuor and his team campaigned vigorously around the country. Eventually, he was elected as President of Ghana by a landslide in the second round of voting. Here is Mr. Kufuor in his first sessional address to Parliament, introduced to the House by the unforgettable Peter Ala Ajete, the then Speaker of Parliament.
In inviting His Excellency the President of the Republic of Ghana and Commander-in-Chief of the Ghana Armed Forces to deliver his message on the state of the nation.
Mr. Speaker, honorable members of Parliament, 5 weeks ago, on 7th January, year 2001, I appeared before you to swear the great oath to assume the high office of President of the Republic. Since then, I have been occupied with assembling the team which will assist me in the discharge of my mandate. With your cooperation, that task is now substantially complete.
Perhaps Mr. Kufuor is the first president under the Fourth Republic to have achieved major significant social interventions. The National Health Insurance Scheme was fully established in Ghana for the first time. The free compulsory universal basic education was implemented. The capitation grant and the school feeding program were all programs established under Mr. Kufuor. After serving 2 terms, the National Constitution debarred Mr. Kufuor from contesting. His party, the New Patriotic Party, therefore had to choose a new leader. On that auspicious occasion in 2007, Mr. Kufuor sounded significantly philosophical.
This party issues out of a tradition that is displaying attributes with a strong streak of spirituality. Seriously, there is an innate wisdom, shrewdness, and mystique that combine to hallmark this party as no ordinary party. It's truly a party of destiny. And I speak with some authority because I've come through the process and I know it.
Mr. Kufuor's desire to see his party and their candidate win the election was thwarted as Ghanaians voted for the rival party, the NDC. Mr. Kufuor showed high democratic skills in accepting the verdict when he addressed Parliament for the last time in 2008.
Naturally, Mr. Speaker, I had hoped that after my tenure, I would be succeeded by a candidate from my own political tradition. But as things stand, and have turned out, the Electoral Commissioner has declared that the electorate of Ghana has decided otherwise. As a Democrat, I acknowledge this declaration, and I therefore congratulate once more Professor John Evans Atta Mills on his election. Mr. Speaker, I should also congratulate the NPP flag bearer, Honorable Nana Dudankwa Akufo-Addo, who has acquitted himself with valor and the greatest sense of dignity in what is perhaps one of the closest and most keenly contested elections ever in the nation's political history.
In this interview,
Mr. Kufuor explains why his party lost the election.
Unfortunately for us, we went into the 2008 election with some splits within our ranks. For instance, 18 of our members stood independent in parliamentary elections. Didn't help us. That didn't help us. If they hadn't done it, Nana Addo would have won one touch. Because even with all the splits on the count after the first round, he led by 49-point-something%. Needed only 23,000 votes to have won outrightly.
8 years later, Mr. Kufuor was back on the campaign trail to ensure that his party was re-elected to power. And as fate would have it, it must have been a proud moment for John Agyekum Kufuor while he watched his friend and contemporary, his former Attorney General and former Foreign Minister, take the oath of President, and his, Mr. Kufuor's former appointee at the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, take the oath as Vice President. At this stage, the historians will begin to write. The only small matter of a setback to Mr. Kufuor's administration will be the gruesome murder of the Yana Yakubu Andani under Mr. Kufuor's watch as President of Ghana and Commander-in-Chief of the Ghana Armed Forces. All in all, history should judge Mr. Kufuor kindly. After all, he enhanced democracy and good governance. None of his appointees was found for corruption. He laid down the foundations of meaningful social interventions over an 8-year period. And he also set up the National Reconciliation Commission to reconcile our people towards a great future. And he accepted the narrowest of defeat even when his party did not win. This is what Mr. Kufuor said about himself in terms of legacy.
My abiding principle in life has always been to leave a place better than I found it.
In that regard, may we confer on John Agyekum Kufuor, the most distinguished constitutional statesman of Ghana. So, to J.A. Kufuor, we say, Aiko.
All right, congratulations to J.A. Kufuor. But that's one of the works that we have put out over there. It's 10 o'clock now, 1 minute to 10 o'clock, and there's an interesting guy in the studio, Chalawi. Everything cool? Yeah. So this is the second time we are meeting?
First time.
Yeah, but if we met that day,
Yeah.
but we didn't know each other.
Yes.
Oh, okay, all right. Viewers, this is an interesting human interest story coming up. I was here in the studio when one of my assistants came and said, this person is looking for you, da. I said, oh, wow. Okay, bring him into the studio. Let's see what. So you'll find out who he is in a minute. But now we have a commercial break. Before the commercial break, though, I do have some LPMs to read out. The commercial break will show you the advert on the lifts and elevators anyway, so you know it's what it is about. Those of you watch this program often, for those that it's your first time, this is it. You have to enjoy the fruits of your labor, they say. But as humans, aging and physical infirmity stand our way of enjoying our mansions and homes. So you build a big mansion and then maybe unfortunately you can climb up very easily because your back or your leg or something like that. This is the solution. It often becomes challenging, as they say. Now it says worry no more, because with portable American pneumatic vacuum elevators, PVEs, you are sure of unlimited enjoyment of your mansions and homes. It is simple to use self-supported elevator for vertical movement
of humans and goods at your home or office. The original comes in 3 custom-made models with wheelchair accessibility to choose from. You may call it luxury, but it's a necessity. So please call this number now, 0200 535 515, 0200 535 515. And also, you want quality, affordable home appliances, you can visit any of the showrooms. Is the Makers Electronics Blessing Attack promo. It's rushed to the Makers Electronics Company Limited for up to 67% discount on selected appliances such as Samsung TV, LG TV, NASCO, TCL, Media, and Toshiba air conditioners and everything. Visit the showrooms at Taifa, Bukina Highway, Amasaman, Zongo Junction, Oyarifa, Taiman, Boga Junction, Kaswa, New Market, Ashaman, Valco Flat, Kumase, Ahinema Kokobin, Takrade, Efie Kuma, number 9 Market, and you can call them on the following number, 055 222 53, 055 222 53 or 54. Over now to a commercial break. When we come back, this big human rights, human interest story, very, very big story on human interest, and then we go to tell you by our own process and algorithms who would be the 5 that the MPP will be selecting. After the break, good evening, Ghana. I'll be right back. It's 2 minutes past 10 o'clock.
Enjoy the fruits of your labor, they say. But as humans, aging and physical infirmity stands our way of enjoying our mansions and homes. It often becomes challenging, if not impossible, to use our stairways day in, day out. With portable American pneumatic vacuum elevators, PVs, you are assured of unlimited enjoyment of your mansions and homes. It's a self-supported elevator for vertical movement of humans and goods at homes and offices. The original comes in 3 custom-made models with wheelchair accessibility. Call it luxury, but it's a necessary imperative for vertical mobility. Do not let aging or infirmity limit you. Get one for your easy vertical mobility at home. It's affordable and can be installed in just 3 days without modification to your existing building. It's however easier to incorporate it at the construction stage. We also have traditional Fuji elevators and escalators for your high-rise buildings and malls. Visit Lifts and Elevators Company Limited at Sakumono for your elevators nationwide. For free consultation, to call or WhatsApp us on 0200 535 515. Lifts and Elevators, the elevator people.
Betway is your gateway to a theme park full of gaming excitement. A whirlpool of wonder where your favorite games come to life. Where you can take to the skies with max payouts that reach into the millions. All in the palm of your hand. Visit betway.com.gh. Terms and conditions apply. Betway is regulated by the Gaming Commission of Ghana. No under 18. Bet responsibly. Betway. Bet your way.
Sometimes the unexpected happens and the hero falls down in his own story. But he needs not stay down for long. Cosmopolitan Health Insurance is your trusted health partner. Whether an individual building a business, with Cosmopolitan Health Insurance, your medical care is our concern. For the best health insurance solutions for corporate institutions, groups and associations, families and individuals, choose Cosmopolitan Health Insurance from our over 700 accredited health service providers nationwide. Call us on 0302 540 668 or 0501 678 547 for all your health insurance solutions. Cosmopolitan Health Insurance, your medical care is our concern.
My name is John, and this is my long-time crush, my cookie dipped in strawberry yogurt. On this scorching hot afternoon on our way back from a long job hunt, we met this good Samaritan who offered us a
6 weeks later.
A special wedding reception for our bride and groom.
And there she is, my cookie, dipped in someone else's yogurt.
Who holds the moolah, holds the shot. Play game that gains the easiest lottery to play, and win big phone numbers from 0 to 9 up to 3 times daily to become one of our daily lucky winners. Dial *946# to play now, or you can also play online at www.gamepackgames.com. Game Park is regulated by the National Lottery Authority.
JA Plant Food Ghana Limited has introduced the all-new Jetor X70 Plus to the market. Jetor X70 Plus is a modern, spacious family SUV with a stylish design, advanced technology, and outstanding quality that promises you luxury with affordability. Jetor X70 Plus comes with an exceptional engine warranty of 4 years or 100,000 kilometers.
More blessing in giving than receiving. When you fear for you and couple the makers in Sran who they were.
The pneumatological abrasion of the Lord revealed unto me this night that me and my household should go out into the world and bless the world.
Makers Electronics Company Limited. I'm up to 67% discount. Our selected appliances.
This is what I call quintessential immaculatability.
The Makers Electronics Company Limited. Ewo Taifa Burkina Highway. Amasama Zongo Junction. Edike Pharmacy Dining. Oyer Fateman Boga Junction. Ashaman Valco Flat. Kumasi. Ahinema Kokobin. Asafu Buachi Hospital Junction. Takradi. Number 9 Market.
Tell mom and dad about the Makers Blessing Attack program.
From 0552 222 253 and 0552 222 254. Terms and conditions apply. The same got to move.
Okay, welcome back to the show, and thank you very much. We are hitting the touch screen very soon to talk about the 10 flag bearers of the NPP and who we think will make the 5. And we'll show you a few things. After that, we come to a full international relations story, and later on, we have a tech story as well. But our man is here. Chief, what's your name?
My name is Joseph.
Joseph, so tell us that day, what happened? How did I get back onto your motorbike?
Okay, that day, forget the date.
No, just speak PJ, we'll go free here, It'll be some Saturday.
Yeah, it's Saturday. It's a festival for...
it's a Charlotte Festival.
Charlotte Festival.
Yes.
Jamestown. So I was passing around the new court, that area. So he did the payments. We're like, I asked you a question. That boss, you are going. I speak that idea is gone. Say no more. Look at it.
And you can worry. I can be like
Yeah,
worry. You can worry. You are going to
yeah, you can. When you go out, look at. You are going to look at what. You are open to it. She blame me inside there. Me fire inside there. She okay. Oh, tao. Any man chair.
Any man chair. Lele.
You go back like that.
No, me talk my interview le.
Okay.
And we talk le.
You go touch.
Viewers, I explain. Those of you who don't speak, I'll explain a bit later. It was many cable baby. Me cable na me boy mucha. Ghana me cable.
Guy go je me too so ke me akewu. Good evening Ghana. Akemeba later ni shimo kewu. Tani ina go later on ni ani mo search your phone ni ko na akewu. Lele ni bana picture ni nabu.
Please put the photograph up. The photograph we are talking about. Put the photograph up. And let's see. Okay, so that's the photograph. Come on TV.
Yeah.
What bota here? And the mentor said, viewers, you see that I'm wearing one of the people here drew my attention to it in the studio. I'm wearing the same bolero. This is what I was wearing that day. I didn't plan it. At
the same time, you wear some cap around.
Yeah, I wear some cap. Yeah. At the back. Yes. This is what I was wearing that day. There is a video. That's it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Please start the video again. Let's see him. Aha. Oh, yes. That was the day. So your friend called you and said, I have put you online.
Yeah, it was.
Yes. I had my bag behind me. I think there was a camera in it. Yeah. What happened there?
She had a party.
Party? Yeah. Party a bank monitor a bole. Thomas. Party. Oh no, party. Ingode. Lalo Gamashi.
Yeah,
Gamashi. Ohomomba. Where that's no joy in the watcher program. Ke ogbina nke oba gbasani. Abanu no ko fi o. But o mi ni chumo okada na ofio. Okada na ofio. O no ba na okada ba.
Mpali makumoto. Itese ke ba. Tibi ani nye ba ko itese ke ba.
O ta se ke ba.
Ba bi last week she ni ba na one of security ko ni ke o.
Last week ba bi.
I'm she baba Tuesday.
Oh, okay. Better when I want to keep over. All right, viewers. So this is my friend whom I met many years ago. How many years ago, Chief?
4 years to 5 years.
Yeah, 4 to 5 years ago. I went with a crew. Went to Charlotte Festival to film it. And when I arrived, I didn't know him. I don't know him. I just, as he's recounting, I just spoke to him in Ghana and I said, "Look, can you take me?" And there it is. And I sat behind his motorbike. And we went into the Charlotte Festival. And recently, we put up the flyer. I think one of these, today we use the same flyer, but recently we put up the flyer about, I think it was one of the Cecilia Dapa stories. We put up this flyer where somebody in the studio said, we can use a motorbike, because we were thinking about what flyer to use that day. And then somebody said, we can use a motorbike, and we looked at it and we said, okay, why not? Let's put it up. Somehow people liked it. So somebody called him, he said, and said that the man that you gave the lift to has put your stuff on Good Evening Ghana online, and he wants to see you. And it's true, we want to see him. We're happy that he's here tonight, and we will deal with it later on. I'm an joy the other studio. All right, viewers, I hit the touch screen now to wait for Al-Hassan Bello, but I will begin with the analysis in local politics. You know that if you saw our flyer, we said we're going to do international politics, and we'll also do local politics. So the local politics now is about the MPP. We just showed you a Kufuor video which had something to do about the MPP Congress, which is going to happen again this year, first in August and next in December. Now, there are 10 candidates that have been that have emerged from the process. That means candidates who have filed their interest in a nomination, they have been interviewed by the party, and they have been cleared by the party to be able to contest the process. However, at the end of the process, because there were 10 candidates, the party's laws, rules, and regulations require that there is a mini Congress that is set up with a few of the people voting. Now, I didn't get the slide on the voter profile of the MPP Congress, but I'll get it for you. I'll talk about it. I just don't have a graphic depiction of it, but I'll talk about it. So the general voter population of the MPP voting population is about 200,000 people. Sometimes there's always a between, because some people don't show up, and etc. etc. So there's a fixed list of voters, and there's a variable list of voters. Former ministers have votes, they have to register the votes, etc. etc. Former President Kufuor has a vote, he has to exercise it, he may or may not exercise it, all of that. However, the fixed are the members of parliament of the party, ministers and deputy ministers of the party. Whilst they are in power, the president of the republic, the vice president of the republic, then regional executives, all regional executives, all polling station executives, and there are 38,000 polling stations, and that's where the number gets to that 200,000. So that's the big number that's going to elect. Very similar to the NDC anyway. But the special delegates votes, which is going to occur in August, is not all the 200,000. It's about 1,000 people, all members of parliament, all regional executives, I believe, ministers of state, ministers, not deputy ministers, as opposed to deputy ministers, ministers appointed under Article 78, if you like, as opposed to ministers appointed under Article 79. So ministers, properly so-called, will be voting as well. And then the National Council, Council of Elders, former president, and a group of people. They are numbering just a little under 1,000 from what we are told. Now, they are going to elect the 5 to go into the main contest for the bigger 200,000 to decide on who becomes the flag bearer of the party. So the 10 are going to be presented to these super delegates, as they've been called, and they are going to elect the 5. So they're going to take a ballot sheet and elect Alan Chamati. Another person takes a ballot sheet, elects Dr. Bawumia. Somebody takes a ballot sheet, elects Kwabena Agyapong. So the counting is going to how many does Alan Chamati have? So in that order, Bawumia is second or first, Alan is second or first, Kennedy Agyapong is second or first. They'll count it and they'll announce it to us. There was a small dispute as to how this should occur, whether or not it should occur in the same place or it should occur in separate regions. All 16 regions should do their own voting. The cheaper one, the party believed, was that it should happen across 16 regions. So that's what's going to happen. So we're also going to receive results with another column. We're going to receive the winner, the region, the second, the third, the first 5. So we're going to know that Ashanti region was won by this person, Eastern region was won by this person, Northern region was won by this person. Never mind that it is a superdelegates and it's lower than the electoral college, but we'll analyze it. Will it send a signal? Will it not? Okay, now let's get to the touch screen straight away and look at them. So number 1, and we have put it in the order of the ballot boxes. What I'm going to do tonight is to pick the person and give you preliminary strengths and weaknesses. Then we will go to our top 5, who we think are top 5 as a result of the preliminary strengths and weaknesses, and then we'll show you some 2 videos at the end of the day. After that, then Alhassan Bello will come with the Niger story. All right, so ballot, first person on the ballot, Kennedy Agyapong, whom I met last weekend in a nice place. We had a nice conversation. Kennedy Agyapong is number 1 on the ballot. Alan Chamati is number 2 on the ballot. Joseph Gate, former Attorney General, is number 3. Kwejo Poku, the outsider, is number 4. Usufri Akoto, the dark horse, is number 5. Kwabena Agyapong, the former General Secretary, number 6. Adainimo, the perennial contestant in this flag bearership, number 7. Kofi Kunodo Apreku, a very old horse, number 8. Boachi Chako, very articulate and former Minister for Energy, number 9. And the obvious front runner, Alhaji Muhammad Bawumia, number 10. Okay, so let's start with Kennedy Agyapong. What are his strengths and what are his weaknesses? In postulating this strength and weaknesses analysis, we are going to be looking at 2024 as the denominator of the conversation. So 2024 is a denominator for all. So when we pick a strength for somebody, we are looking at the strength in relation to 2024, vis-a-vis 2024, not general strength as a politician. I hope we are clear on that. So if we say Kennedy Agyapong is good or he's bad, it is in direct relation to 2024 only. That means that we can analyze and say Kennedy Agyapong is good for 2024, but he's not good for 2016. Something like that. Okay, so here's Kennedy Agyapong. What are his strengths? Okay, generally as a politician, his strength is that he's no nonsense, he speaks the truth, and by and large, people believe he's not corrupt. By and large, people believe he's not corrupt. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. Whether he's a good man or a bad man, I don't know. We're just analyzing it. So people believe he's not corrupt, so he scores high on anti-corruption, corruption. People believe he speaks the truth. People believe that he's direct, he's forceful. And people also believe that he loves the poor. People generally believe that he loves the poor. So that's what works for him. So that's what gives him the domino effect, the rally effect, the sound bite effect. He has all of that. Okay. In relation to 2024, the MPP is looking for a 3rd term. Okay. Then comes his weaknesses. Whatever he is an MPP person. His capacity to draw votes outside the MPP for 2024 would be lopsided. For 2024, it won't be the same for 2020. That is, I'm analyzing his capacity to draw votes outside the MPP. That is, people who are not MPP supporters. Because MPP in 2024 is the endangered species. They are looking for a 3rd term. That's very, very difficult. So they have, as I told you, the story Kwame Pepra told me at the Kumasi airport, they have offended too many people between some is genuine, some is not genuine. You've done a road, you've broken the places where I live in Teshi, they broke down people's things to do the road, they are not happy with it, All of those governmental excesses, that is the incumbency deficit, is running against the MPP. So in MPP itself, their own supporters, they are hoping that they can get their own supporters to turn up and vote. When you're looking for a 3rd term, it's always the same. What is the guarantee that somebody who is normally not MPP would elect Kennedy Agyapong, who is MPP, because he loves the poor, because he does? No. It's unlikely. That person will elect his John Mahama, he will elect his person. He likes Kennedy Agyapong, but there's not the time for MPP to get a 3rd term. Why? That's how he will think. He's not going to. He's unlikely to elect anybody from the MPP. Okay. So the issue then is, what is his capacity for the purpose of 2024 to draw votes outside the MPP? Does the MPP need to draw votes outside their party? Yes, they do. Both they and NDC. But especially the one looking for a third term, he needs to be drawing significant votes. He needs to be changing the electoral map. It's the MPP that needs to be changing the electoral map. Is that significant? That's number one. Number two, the MPP must hold their base in the election, wherever their base is. If their base is Kwadraso Pankrono, they have to hold it, and hold it, I call it unanimously. I hope you understand that. You have to hold it and hold it unanimously. Is Kennedy Japan the person to galvanize the base of the party? To some extent, you can say yes. Some people may argue with that, but some may say yes. So, just so that I shift from him, these are his strengths and his weaknesses. Do we think that he will be in the 5? Our straightforward answer is yes. Are there people who are thinking about him and thinking that he's problematic, so he shouldn't be in the 5? Yes, there are. Yes, there are very serious people out there who are thinking that this guy is a problem. Why do you want him in the 5? He's going to say that. Yes, there are those people. Are they maneuvering to try and campaign against? Yes, they are. Would he survive that campaign? Maybe. I don't know. But do we put him in the 5? Yes, we certainly do. Kennedy Japan, strengths and weaknesses, correct. He'll be in the 5. Okay. Alan Kyerematen. Very interesting. Alan Kyerematen has similar strengths with Kennedy Japan. Likability across board. That's correct. People like Alan Kyerematen. Nobody can change that. And I like Alan Kyerematen. His experience with government counts for something. He's been experienced. His longevity in government without any corruption scandal, he also passes the corruption test. Clearly, he passes it. He's been long in government, no corruption scandal. The small issues about Alan, some people, you see, every political party has the hawks and they have the doves. The hawks of the MPP think that he's not fighting enough, he's not shouting on John Mahama enough, he's not shaking the NDC. That's how the hawks see him. Do the hawks have a role to play in the party? Yes, they do. Do they run the base of the party? Sometimes they do. So, Alan Kyerematen's profile is not very satisfactory to the hawks of the MPP. They think he should be punching a bit harder, and that he has had the opportunity for so long, he never punches. He should go out there and deal with it the way they know historically how people have dealt with it. Okay. Let's come to Alan Kyerematen's general wide public popularities. That is true. He has a wide sort of spread of people who like him. Many people like him. With respect to 2024, will that translate into people voting for him? The like they have for him, will it cascade into a vote for him by a non-MPP person, but who likes Alan and who has John Mahama to vote for? And if he votes for Alan, he's giving the MPP a third term, breaking the 8? My answer is no. So the incumbency deficit is hurting Alan in terms of what are his weaknesses. The incumbency deficit is stuck against him. People like him, but can there be a compelling reason why NDC person will elect Alan Kyerematen instead of John Mahama for MPP's third term? I don't know. Do we put him in the 5? Yes, we certainly do. Alan Kyerematen is in the 5. Joe Ghartey. Okay. Well, what are his strengths and weaknesses? Joe Ghartey is an MPP man. He's been Attorney General. He's credited for fighting the drug battle when he was Attorney General. People know about that. He became Railway Minister. One of Joe Ghartey's issues is the parliamentary votes that turned out in 2020 in an MPP stronghold. The votes appear to have whittled completely away into the ballot box of Grace Ayinsu, the NDC candidate. And that was shocking for many people. For me, it was surprising. For many people who had thought of a known Joe Ghartey as being very popular among the Sikado people, Joe Ghartey is completely popular. Joe Ghartey is the one we usually will say that on election day, if one person could run 2 constituencies, we'll put Joe Ghartey in Korle Klottey and also put Joe Ghartey in the Sikado. He'll win both. And it is true. If you know how Joe Ghartey used to work with Accra House of Folk supporters at the Osu stand, when we started going to the Accra Sports Stadium, the Osu stand, the old Accra Sports Stadium before 2008, the Osu stand, Joe Ghartey was a champion of the House Boys. Nobody knew that he was fancy. So Osu is Joe Ghartey's place. He can actually deliver that seat. So that's what we used to say. And then come 2020, I was here in the studio when the first report came to me that Joe Ghartey had lost the election. I said, the Sikado, I was here. And all the boys were laughing at me, saying, Charlie, why today, what happened? After I was jubilating that Amewu had won because I like Peter Amewu, they said, your man Joe Ghartey is gone. Alex Segbefia, I think, was the first person who saw a text and said, Charlie, your man Joe Ghartey is gone. So I stood out and I called him. And somebody picked the phone. And I said, are you in the Sikado? He said, yeah. I said, where's Uncle Joe? He said, he's around. I said, now, I said, Kodo. He said, oh, yeah, win. I said, are you sure? He said, oh, yeah, win, yeah, win. Now, one knock, I say, and I said, Paul, I don't want you. He said, oh, good evening, Ghana. Yeah, win, yeah, win, yeah, win. I said, well, okay. So I came back. I texted other people in Jogate, fine. But when the results came, he had actually won. But it was so small. So surprising that Grace Ayuso had covered so much ground. It's been a concern for people thinking that Jogate did not show complete control of Isikado for the at least 3-4 terms that he ran it. For the last one, why is he running for president? What's going to happen? But other people feel that, but this is the advantage for Jogate. People feel that there is a contest between some two people, and the party must go for a third person. In fact, now they think there's a contest between some 3 people who don't like each other. So for the party unity, they have to go for another person, somebody outside that group. Those who are thinking like that may be looking at Jogate. Now, do we put Jogate in our top 5? Let's finish and see. Let's finish and see. The first 2 are obvious in there. Jogate is not obvious. We'll tell you at the end. Who am I looking at? Please, is it the Poku guy? Okay. Kojo Poku, this is a different picture from the one out there on the billboards. There's some nice, very, that about looking photograph on the billboards around. This is a bit different. Here, he looks like a rich businessman. I have very little to say about Kojo Poku, but I just support his courage and the tradition that he comes from. Poku Transport's son. Poku Transport was one of those who sacrificed for the party and worked with Prime Minister Buzia and supported the party. The Poku Transport's money has gone into UP, MPP, NLM forever. It is just right that one of the Poku Transport grandchildren will come and stick his claim into the MPP hierarchy. So, welcome, sir. Do we put him in our top 5? The answer is no. Okay. This is my man. This is my man, Osofri Akoto. He's forthright. His yes is yes, blue is blue, white is white, red is red. You don't get any hypocrisy with him. He's direct. He'll tell you the fact, and Ochameba, that's him. Okay. So what are his strengths? His strength is that he appears to have been focusing on this presidential candidate thing for a much longer time than we all thought. He appears to have been focusing on it. So you see, if you look at his campaign, there are no ifs and buts and no rush and no too much pomp and all that. But researchers are telling us that if, apart from maybe Dr. Bawumia and perhaps Kennedy Japan, if any other person can point to votes that he knows for certain are his, it's also a free. The votes may not be many, but also a free has those people that he knows that come what may, rain, shine down, these people, they are voting for me. They are my people. Apparently, he has them. He knows them. That's why he's quiet. You see, he's cool. He's not doing plenty. That's one press conference. He's focusing on his university lectures on agriculture and all of that. He knows that, Charlie, him there, he may not win. He won't get 80%. But this is the core that are going to vote for him. Apart from Dr. Bawumia and Kennedy Japan, they tell us that this is the third person who actually knows people by name that are going to vote for him. So, Osofri Akoto is that man, former Minister for Agri. Do we put him in the 5 years? We do. We absolutely do. Kwabena Japan, strengths are plenty. And what weaknesses can I talk about him? Can I find any? Kwabena Japan? Well, but he's a true party man. I mean, there are not many people who are more MPP than Kwabena Japan. No. You won't find many people. Maybe you take, because of hierarchy and age, you take Kufuor and you take Akufo-Addo, and you won't find many people who are more NPP than Kwabena Japan. For the way he served the party, the periods in which he served the party, you have to be MPP. You have to want and need nothing from MPP, but you are MPP to do what the kinds of things Kwabena Japan did. That's why he talks about sacrifice and all of those things that he's talking about these days. Now, is he going to be in the 5? That's an interesting question. If you look at the 10, he is the only high-profile party executive who is running. There's no chairman amongst them, and there's no general secretary amongst them. He is the only general secretary, high-profile chairman or general secretary who is running for flag bearership, and he's doing it for the second time. He did it the first time before he became general secretary. He's doing it again. Some people are telling us that the party people may consider that just to put him in the 5. They don't think he's going to win, but because they don't want to embarrass the former general secretary of the party. He's the only guy who has been chairman or general secretary who is running for this. So just so that the party looks intact, that the general secretary has not been embarrassed, because they say he's not going to win. So put him in the 5. Just have him in the 5. He has a message, he speaks well, he can campaign for the party, he's a former general secretary. Don't embarrass him. Don't embarrass him. Put him in the 5. This is what we're hearing some people telling us. So do we put Kwabena Agyapong in our 5? Do we? Okay, you wait. We are coming. We're coming. We'll get there. Hey, Onimo. Very little to say about Dainimo. Very little to say about him, except to say that he's a perennial contestant. And we congratulate him for his tenacity on this project. He's been doing it for a long time. He doesn't win. He doesn't get anything out of it, but he does it. And every year he does it. And every year he does it. Former Member of Parliament, Mr. Justice Adainimo. Justice is a name that I'm adding to his name. Okay. Hey, Kofi Konedo Apraku. He's my boss, you know. Kofi Konedo Apraku is, you know, his strengths and weaknesses. You know, he was a great member of parliament during the opposition era, 96 to 2000, when I covered parliament. Oh my goodness, you would like to get an interview with him all the time. Kofi Konedo Apraku he's a sharpshooter. He's great in the 2000 budget, the budget that was read by Richard Kwame Pepra. What then sparked to become a campaign message of the MPP. The budget was read in March. The election was in December. Kofi Konedo Apraku, who was the spokesperson on finance, when he was asked what does he make of the budget, he said, a lame duck budget from a lame duck government. Get them out. He said that in March, and it hit the streets. There was no social media then, but it became a campaign mantra, and everybody was quoting him. He said, a lame duck budget from a lame duck government. Get them out. And, you know, the people rallied around that call, and eventually it led to J.A. Kufuor being elected months later in December of the same year. So Kofi Konedo Apraku has a history with the party. He does. He has a history with the party. The problem, though, is that he's been out, in, out. People have forgotten about him. They're not sure whether he's there. And also, because he's been around the party for so long, they put him in the category of J.A. Kufuor and J.H. Mensah and Odoyi Sykes and Peter Adjete. So they throw him to the history. They don't think that he is part of the modern thinking and the future of the MPP. They are wondering that, but if we are seeing Akufo-Addo off, then we are bringing Apraku. And are we going forward or are we coming back? That's what is hurting his campaign. That's they think that you are Nana Addo's contemporary. You and him were a minister, you came from America, all of you did very well. Safo Mafo's contemporary. And you are running for presidential candidate today in Ghana in MPP. Why? That's the question they're asking him. That your time is past. Your contemporaries are exiting presidency. Your contemporaries are exiting senior ministerhood. Your contemporaries are J.A. Kufuor. They are ex-presidents times 4. It's not the time for Kofi Konedo Apraku. So do we put him in the 5? No, please, we don't. Good evening, sir. Yes, Boakye Agyapong is an interesting, very, very interesting, different kettle of fish, you know, completely different kettle of fish. Boakye has the knowledge of the party. It's in his head. There are not many UP intellectuals. In fact, Boakye Kra is not UP. Boakye is extremist MPPO. So Boakye is NLM. Boakye is not UP. Boakye is NLM. That's Boakye Agyapong. They're his kind. People like him, they're NLM. They are radicals of the New Patriotic Party. They are radicals of the Dankwa Buzia philosophy. Total radicals. They are the Al Jazeera. How do they call them? ISIS is the other one. The Hamas and Hezbollah. Boakye Agyapong is the Hamas and Hezbollah of MPP. They are MPP ideologues, blue blood, radical. Radical. So he has that connection with the party. Even if you sack him from government, he's still MPP. That is Boakye Agyapong. He's true blue blood MP. Not like Kwabena Agyapong's blue blood. Boakye is radical. Boakye is to the extreme. He's very radical on UP tradition, Dankwa Buzia. He knows how the UP people pray. He knows how they stand up, how they sit down, how they walk, how they wear cloth. Boakye will tell you that now UP ni na ufran tuma sa. Ma mencha on tuma fra Joe appear. Say na no ufran tuma. That's Boakye Agyapong. He knows how UP walks, how they talk, how they sit down. That's him. He's a UP ideologue radical. If he had remained energy minister and there was no issues about a deal or a Mary or all of that, because he's quite incorruptible. Even with all of that, Boakye still stands tall when it comes to corruption. All the rumors of a Mary and all of that put together. Boakye is so incorruptible that it really didn't do much to his incorruptibility. But if he had remained minister and that matter had not happened, and he had been minister of energy till 2020 and beyond, and a big end, in spite of COVID and all that, if the lights had been kept on, which is a significant denominator between John Mahama and whoever is challenging him, the light was kept on, I bet you, he would have been a very, very interesting challenger to Dr. Bawumia. If that process that I'm describing had occurred, if Boakye had been there and the lights were on, everybody knows the lights are on, tariffs are not high, and in 2023, MPP can say that not once since 2017 has the lights gone off. Because when Boakye was there, the lights didn't go off. We know that. They started going off. I'm not saying if he was there, it won't go off. I don't know. But that's at least the record he held until he left. And they could talk about the lights on. They would call him Papa Kosombo and things like that. And he would have just cascaded right into the top of the contest. But because he left, and because the government moved on without him, I think he lost significant ground in the process. He lost significant ground because he left and the government appeared to have moved on without him. And in 2020's campaign, they don't remember much of him. So that ground is lost. This is gone. But if the MPP know what is good for them, this is still a very, very important intellectual and human resource to have within your campaign, political campaign. This is a very, very good brain to have within your campaign. Do we put Boakye Darko in the 5? I'm sorry, no, we don't think so. Okay, am I at the end? Is that the last? Okay, all right. So this is, Dr. Bawumia has an infectious smile. Do you know that? Dr. Bawumia has an infectious smile. You look at the photograph, and then if you are not careful, you will be smiling, you know. Now, this is Dr. Bawumia. So what are his strengths and his weaknesses? Well, his strength is just his sheer tenacity and how quickly he has roped himself through the MPP situation. What works for him is that when he came into the MPP and was given a high-profile position and the election was lost, he remained with the party, not just in photographs and optics, but he was going into the funerals, he was visiting constituencies. People don't know that. He was working in the party, he was moving around. He worked in Zimbabwe for a while, he's in Ghana, he's everywhere, he's touching and pressing people. That's some of what people are seeing now that they don't quite get it. But that's what Dr. Bawumia was doing. He was not just part of the press conferences in 2011 or 13 or 14. He wasn't just doing press conference. He was going to talk to party people. He was working with constituency people about how to change the image of the party, especially in the north. He stayed there and done so much work to now change parliamentary numbers from MPP now in the lead by 1. All that is the work he did from 2008. So he's had this speed in terms of penetrating the party. And he's also had this infectious smile, and he's had this approachability. People can approach him just, when he goes out, people think they can approach him. That's what they think of Dr. But he's approachable. He'll talk to you. He'll solve the problem on the phone, just like that. When I always tell the story about the airport situation. This now when you come into Ghana, you don't need a card. We went to a meeting in January, and he said, okay, we want to change this situation. This is immigration, this is Ghana card people. So it's about data, isn't it? It's about data. So people now come in and say, okay, we have printed this card, we have to do this and that and that and that. And fundamentally, immigration are complaining they don't have data or something like that. Dr. Bawumia says, but Ghana card, do you have the data? Can you share with immigration? They say, yes. They say, okay, so we can start. And then they say, oh, but we've printed, I think they print in advance. So they printed quite a number of the cards. I don't remember how many, but they printed a significant number. And Dr. Bawumia said, you can keep the cards that you have printed, but we are changing the policy in March. This is January. So we look around, I look at my MD, look at the minister, and he's asking, what's the problem? We are starting in March. By the grace of God, by 31st March, the airport opened without it. That's the kind of effectiveness that is making people draw to him. And I was talking to somebody this weekend, and he was telling me that all of you have been whipped. And I was telling him that, well, it's okay to think people have been whipped to support Dr. Bawumia, but you have to do the litmus test and see why people are drawing to him. Again, he presents the MPP with that big philosophical advantage of having to be led by a non-Akan, which people like Nana Akufo-Addo have talked about, J.A. Kufuor have talked about, that the MPP needs to change its character. Although Isaacs used to talk about it forever, Ajete used to talk about it, that when is the MPP going to have the opportunity to change its character? Because this Akan thing, Ghana is growing out of that. So there's been that forceful argument, especially from the UP side, you know, over the history. And that sort of positions Dr. Bawumia right there. I remember many years ago, there was a minister called Malik Yakubu Al-Hassan. He was a minister for Interior. He used to live in Laboni next to Metro TV. So every now and then I'll be in his house talking just before I go and do Good Evening Ghana. And a lot of people were saying to Malik Yakubu that you will be the one very, very soon to change the image of the MPP. You will make an excellent flag bearer for the party. And people used to talk to Malik about that. Malik Al-Hassan Yakubu, eventually he had to painfully resign from President Kufuor's government on the Yana situation. But he was a very fine gentleman. Those who know him, please, if you know where he is, tell him that I was talking about him. A very nice man. So the thing falls on Dr. Bawumia for the philosophers who think that it is time to change the image of the MPP so that we can win ourselves of this major criticism of the opponents, and then we can move forward. That's working in his favor, his affability, the way he talks to people. His campaign also appeared to be quite well oiled, isn't it? And this is bus, puts everybody in a bus and running around. People are beginning to like it. Okay. So do we put Dr. Bawumia in our 5? Oh yes, certainly. We think that Dr. Bawumia would actually be the winner on the ballot, but we don't know by how much or which regions. And so certainly we put him in the 5. Okay, who is going to win which regions? Now, Ashanti region is going to be very important for the MPP. If the Ashanti region is won by a non-Ashanti, as in Dr. Bawumia, that will also be very significant. If Ashanti region is won by Dr. Bawumia, that's significant. We should be looking out for that. We should also be looking out for what happens in Central region. Because whereas Alan Kyerematen is expected to do well in Central region, Kennedy Japan appear to have made some inroads, and now Dr. Bawumia is also catching up. So Central region is an interesting battleground. It looks like it's home for Alan Kyerematen, his home ground, but Kennedy Japan is coming in to show that he's an MP from the area, and Dr. Bawumia is also beginning to make inroads, and Dr. Bawumia's campaign over there is driven by Hawa Kumsin and others who are very forceful on the ground. So Central region is an interesting place to look at. Volta region will have to show whether Peter Ameu's relationship with Alan Kyerematen in terms of the campaign is working. And so we're expecting to see how the Volta delegates vote in this super delegates thing. If they vote for another candidate other than Alan Kyerematen, it will mean that Peter Ameu has a lot more work to do to convince his people to deal with it, because he is the senior most Voltarian now in the government, Peter Ameu, the member of parliament for Hohoe, and he's on Alan Kyerematen's campaign. I'm sure you've seen that. If they are not able to deliver the Volta region for Alan Kyerematen, because Alan has also historically been quite strong in the Volta region. Alan had a relationship with Mr. Tommy Ameteko, who is unfortunately passed. He used to be the Volta regional chairman of the party. So that's also quite significant. So we look out for what happens in the Volta region. OT region and Volta region, we expect the same thing. Western region, Jogate is over there. We will see what happens there. We expect Dr. Bawumia to clean up the 3 northern regions, northern, northeast, and Savannah. We expect Dr. Bawumia to clean that up. But if another candidate wins in those areas, then it's an interesting story for us to look at. But we expect Dr. Bawumia to clean those northern, upper west, and upper east. We expect Dr. Bawumia to clean it up completely. What's going to happen in the Bono region? It's very interesting. Bonos and Ashantis will be thinking alike, but we are not sure how it will go. What's going to happen in Bono East, we don't know. OT region, we don't know. So we'll keep the map open and then look at it. Now, let's look at our members of parliament. Our members of parliament, and then where are the votes going to go? Do you know somebody who's going to vote for a particular person? You can tell us. But I do know people say that Afenyo Makin might vote for Kennedy Japan. People say that this will vote for that, that will vote for that, that will vote for that. We'll see how it goes. Okay, just to conclude the story of the MPP, here is Daniel Boche, the former General Secretary, eulogizing Dr. Bawumia on the Eastern Region campaign. Have a look.
MPP is going to win 2024. And like what we always do, are winning 2024. Now, so based on my knowledge of the party, na mehwɛ deɛ ɛkɔ so nyinaa na mehwɛ yɛ daakye na meka na masrɛ mo sɛ moma yɛ nyinaa nyɛ ano baako na yɛnkɔto abanoma Dr. Bawumia.
That was Dan Boche, and the contest, I've been told, is 26th August 2023. Earlier today, Samuel Atachia, who is the Member of Parliament for Abuakwa South constituency, also eulogized Dr. Bawumia in this way.
Ada mi hu se papa we say oyo soroba no nyame ahira no any election petition no unim say election petition no me a lawyer ni o petition no na on Nana Adodankwa Akufo-Addo. Ewiase the cheapest thing you can do. So begina political platforms. Choboy! Yes, ye. And obi abet me aka choboy. Ni e po be menyansafo wa kogina Supreme Court. Supreme Court ye nya choboy o. Supreme Court ye nya choboy. Eya adwin. Na Akufo-Addo kra o ye lawyer no. Wa nkwa kogina da kanim. Na Akufo-Addo ankogina da ka wo ye lawyer kase pa. Papa yi onyansafo yi na kogina da kanimo na woti MPP anim na ye ho to yen mame ka se ba kontrol me wo na fufuo be ye enum a won peso won di flag bearer ebinum ka kire me se me medun wachi akompra ka ho me na ko Adisada College joga tete me as a lawyer. Alancha Martin, Oko School, I'm a call at the Southern College. But here, Jacundi, books to be a me here, be out there, mammy. Now, Amina, your woman, dear. I was young for Amina, your woman, dear. And this, I call your mistake. I confirm Wamba. And this, your mistake. I confirm Wamba. Now, Osha, I confirm. I was in a 2024 election. Now, Mr. Digital. Hana ne wa kono. Na mi wa hao. Abana ya tuma na Akufo-Addo no. Abuakwa South na mi di MP kase ya power ha. Me say ye nyina ya to abana ma han. Na Akufo-Addo. Papa bra wa bre na Akufo-Addo yi. Ye mfa wodobi nchira no. Na aba mo beto no monto aba no ma no na sesi ye gina ha die enye presidential candidate yo won be kambrofo na so wo tumi wini eti mesramo enye mi o enye Nana Addo o eye MP
Samuel Atachia, I call him Okonfo. All right, let's see what the text messages are saying as Al-Hassan Bello gets ready to tell us what is happening in Niger. Who should I start with? Fatih, yes, okay.
All right, so this is coming from Hiroshima Guy, and he says, Dr. Bawumia will win simple, and I wish he will partner with the current educational minister. These two men are the future of Ghana. Their brains, ideology, and visions are very futuristic and puts Ghana on the medal going into the next generation of global development. So Alhaji Bob Sidiye has his own analysis, and it's very interesting. He's saying, Paul, Kwabena Japan was my man, but he is currently going overboard with hate and bitterness as if it was Dr. Bawumia who sacked him years ago. Kennedy was my second choice, but with his current outburst and NATO's attacks on the chosen one, DMB, he has moved to the third. And Akoto Free and Joe Gathe are likely to make it to the 5. My prediction is that Mr. Mahmoud Bawumia will be the first, John Allen Tremantin will be the second, Kennedy Japan will be the third, Akoto Afriya will be the fourth, and Joe Gathe will be the fifth. Assalamu alaikum, Apostle Paul. Akusha Kwabia says Ken all the way, and this is coming from Nana Yao Ojuman. Says it's Honorable Boache is too much. The brain behind 2016 NPP's manifesto, very excellent. And this is coming from Berima Kweku. He says Paul, a sentiment has really shown true love to their Royal Alan John Kweju Tremantin, who has started his constituency there best by giving delegates message of hope. Alan's undiluted message resonates very well with delegates and will make sure they support Alan, a true son of theirs, by giving him and pushing him up to the victory. And lastly, from John B. Campbell, says Ken is the only person who can draw a new person from across the board. Antoinette, what do you have for us?
Okay, so here is another one from Alhaji Bob Sidi. He says, Paul, I foresee Dr. Bawumia winning marginally with 70% plus in the upcoming Super Delegate Conference. The NPP dynamic in the choosing of its flag bearers will change this time around. The account thing will change because the accounts themselves are vying stronger for Dr. Bawumia, and inshallah it will come to pass. Modestus Gold says the description about Kennedy Japan is absolutely correct, and I love him for that. He might not be the party executive's favorite, but trust me, the masses love him. He is the only one I believe can break the 8. George Allen says, I love you, Paul. I've fought many battles to defend you, but I disagree with you on tonight's analysis. Much love. Such constructive criticism. Berima Kweku says, Alan Kweju Tremantin has once again affirmed his stance of paying SNIT for all party executives and also put them on compulsory monthly payment structure. And he has a hashtag, he says, Edru so. Kennedy Japan is the best among all the contestants, and he stands a chance of winning the overall election. This is coming from Ofori Apia. George Bampon says, Apostle Paul, Bawumia's work in the NPP is great, and this is the time he needs to be remembered. A young man at his age left his career to cook and support a candidate, not even a president, but someone who was now going to fight for the first time. Come on, he has sacrificed his all. Political party isn't about money or riches, but Ken isn't richer than Ken. If we say that, then Dangote was to be the president of Nigeria. Lastly, we will take this from Derek Nyame. He says, Ken is the only candidate who can get votes from the floating voters. NPP strongholds, the party should focus there. Over to you, Angelo.
Right, so I'll run through these very briefly. From Dakuman, someone sends a list of pairings. He says Dr. Bawumia, 1, 2, Mr. Ken, 3, Mr. Allen, 4, Mr. Akwetu, 5, Mr. Ejako. Richmond from we also says, Paul, it seems you are forcing Bawumia on us. Don't forget the tradition continues. Alan is coming. This is from, I think, yeah, someone named Paul. He says, are Ghanaians ready for a Muslim president? Well, this is from Michael, watching us from Ashalaja. He says, hi, Paul. So far, only Honorable Kennedy Ajipong, the one to draw votes from the base of the NPP, floating voters, and even from the NDC base. His philanthropies have no political boundaries, but unfortunately for Honorable Allen and Dr. Bawumia, this incumbent government is perceived to be corrupt, not performing because the exchange rate has exposed the fundamental weakness of the economy. The ordinary Ghanaians are very angry with the NPP. Only Kennedy is free to defeat the NDC. Lami watching us from the UK says, hi Paul, Dr. Bawumia as president plus Kennedy Ohani Ajipong as his vice will not only break the 8, it will break all other parties. Junior Akbar from Tamale says, for me, all the 5, we are going to choose all of them. All of them are capable of doing it, but we, the grassroots, believe in only one person. And that person is a man of vision who thinks the English is not properly structured. I encourage you to please structure your messages correctly. Lastly, Joe says his competitors seem to be ganging against him. He's the NDC's scariest foe and their greatest nightmare. His name alone is a campaign message against the NDC. There is something magical with Dr. Bawumia. Back to you, Paul. I believe we're going to Bello.
Okay, so I was reading quite a few text messages to Ilyasu from Tamale. Good evening. Thank you very much for watching. It's been a long time, Ilyasu. Okay. Let me deal with the assimilation crisis. I think we don't have much time for that. Let's go straight. Let's go straight to the point and talk about the current situation. Thursday we can go back and do some historical analysis. So just for Kweku to know that we are not doing the earlier part, the historical analysis anymore. We go straight. So the question is, has ECOWAS been embarrassed?
Well, I don't think so.
But the deadline came.
They made it very clear that diplomacy remains the first option, and the military option remains on the table as a last resort. So perhaps the extension is because there may be some understanding on certain issues, but not all. After what happens behind the scene, we are not privy to. But then there's this call for another summit on Thursday. That is when we have a clearer picture of what happened. Was it a total embarrassment? Was it that or some understanding we have gotten on certain issues, and then the rest will have to be addressed? But so far, there was this attempt by AU to break the ice. It was like more a tripartite mission between ECOWAS, AU, and UN. Scheduled to have been in Niger today, but then was called off because the military junta perhaps whether refused to
open the airspace,
meet them or whatever. But
did they arrive in Niger? Do you know the envoys?
Per the statement here, it was aborted due to late communication from the military authorities indicate unavailability to receive the tripartite delegation. So it means they couldn't even set off.
Yeah.
The planned mission was part of the continued effort to peaceful resolution to the current crisis. But then,
and I mean, the junta is feeling that they've won. They are feeling they won the first round.
It's like everyone has taken an entrenched position. So there's a need to break the ice. But then I'm very, very concerned about the need to bring external actors. I think for now, UN and the Western powers should just stay outside. It's an internal African affair. So if ECOWAS and the junta have taken an entrenched position, AU remains the best body to address the issue. This issue of really resorting to the Western powers or whatever to come in is something I don't really ascribe to.
Maybe it's for resources when you have to take an action. UN,
but
some African Union may go to UN. So if you give the UN the opportunity for the first-hand information.
Some of the root causes of these issues have to do with involvement of Western countries and some of their policies in Africa. So when you are bringing tainted faces to come to the table,
no, they may not. The UN rep may be African. The UN does not mean the rep will be a Western person.
I'm not talking about UN precisely, but the issue of aside the UN, the involvement of Western powers, and sometimes sometimes what they do, they come in the guise of UN. And so even UN's neutrality has always been questioned over certain issues.
But then, you think the African Union carries more neutrality?
It is the best alternative.
In terms of neutrality?
Sure.
Who leads the African Union these days?
It seems like Faki Mahamat.
Okay.
But then this is
President Mahama here.
Yeah, this is just an old picture to give us. We almost had similar situation we had in the Gambia, but that was an issue of election and Yahya Jammeh refusing.
I think that was more straightforward.
Yeah, but then it was an issue that was resolved through military, participation.
But that also was unpopular. You see, the Yahya Jammeh situation, the context is that Yahya Jammeh's action was unpopular.
But then,
in terms of his U-turn of his acceptability of the results, his action was unpopular.
But
it was unpopular and undemocratic. Now, the coup, and when you know your political science, you can talk legitimacy. Yeah. So if you look at the concept of legitimacy, the coup has popular legitimacy. It's always very dangerous when an action doesn't have legal legitimacy, and it also doesn't even have political legitimacy, but it has popular legitimacy. So Yahya Jammeh was unpopular. He didn't have popular legitimacy. He didn't have legal legitimacy. He didn't have political legitimacy.
No, but then,
so it was easy to get in and
but
take him out.
His argument also was within the context of the law. If we even go back to the Ivorian situation, Gbagbo's argument was within the context of the law. But just because the outside forces took an entrenched position, they failed to see. In Gbagbo's case, they said if we disagree, go to the Constitutional Court. He went, right? And the Constitutional Court annulled the election result, which is strictly legal. But because we have taken an entrenched position. But I'm only trying to refresh our memory backward. But then what we have now, so this is just preparation for the Thursday summit. But then we need to look at the form of diplomacy that took place. Whilst, on one hand, the Tuesday, there was a meeting of ECOWAS chiefs of defense staff. And this is the CDS of Nigeria, Christopher Musa, General Christopher Musa chaired the meeting. And then also, another delegation was sent to Niger. This is very significant because in this context...
The chief of staff go to Niger or they met in Abuja?
They met in Abuja, the ECOWAS chief of staff. But then, a delegation...
But that's not a good meeting. That's a belligerent sort of...
Yeah, but it was like diplomacy and then, what do you call it? Carrot and stick approach.
Okay.
So
gunboat
diplomacy, right. But then, another delegation was sent to Niger. That's a very significant one in terms of the membership. One, you have Abdulsalam Abubakar, who was equally a former military head of state in Nigeria,
who took the army back to the barracks. And then you have the Sultan of Sokoto, he's equally an ex-soldier, and then the head of Nigerian Muslims. But if you understand his traditional influence, some of his domain stretch into Niger.
Oh, so one of the tribes in Niger respond to Sokoto?
Yeah, the Hausa ethnic groups, cut across.
The Kano side?
Nigeria's border with Niger is about 1,700 kilometers.
Yeah, very long.
Very long from Sokoto to Borno State. What I'm saying is that the traditional structure, there are some chiefs in Niger that answer to their overlords within the Nigerian side.
Oh, I see.
And that is what led to the agitation in the north. You see the Muslim clerics, the northern senators, everybody being very concerned because of the cultural affinity. And so sending him was equally more.
So who sent him?
Tinubu. As ECOWAS chair.
Okay.
So this is a case where he was trying to use the traditional authority to also leverage influence. But then it also didn't lead to any breakthrough. And then on the Sunday, which happened to be the deadline of the ultimatum, we had this huge rally in the National Stadium in the capital, Niamey, and where the people were endorsing the coup. So this is now, you could now understand the standoff.
That's what I'm referring to as the popular legitimacy.
Sure.
They have demonstrated it, that they have popular legitimacy.
But the one thing we can't understand now is that, well, in a situation where there's a coup d'etat, you have the supporters of the coup d'etat having the chance to protest. Is the same courtesy extended to the opponent of the coup d'etat?
No, the point I'm making is that this popularity may not be verifiable. That there may be a greater silent population.
Sure, we can't tell for now. So it will be hard to really measure the level of popularity. And then if you look at the whole thing across the Sahel, it's not as if people are really in support of the military per se. It's just a reaction to the system. They are fed up with the French interference, the insecurity, and the failure of the politicians to meet the aspiration of the citizens. And so now we have back to the whether so far would it be a hard rejection, soft rejection? But then significantly, on Sunday, was it Sunday or Monday, there was this delegation from Burkina Faso and Mali that went to Niger, a solidarity visit. And here you have one of the members of the Malian junta, General Saido Kamara. He led the delegation from Mali that went to So you could see that now we have two divisions in ECOWAS. And these are the coups we have across board. These are outside West Africa. But these three are in West Africa. 2021 was in Mali. You have another coup in Burkina Faso, and you have one in Guinea. And then the military makeup, we need to look at the military strength of the member states.
Of ECOWAS.
Yeah, of ECOWAS.
Take us through it.
So now, this is
I can see Côte d'Ivoire's
Benin has about 5,000 troops and 75.2 in dollar. That's the defense budget. And then you could see that Côte d'Ivoire.
75. What do you mean?
The defense budget.
The percentage of what?
Percentage of GDP.
Or 75% of their GDP goes into military
defense budget, millions in dollars. Okay.
It's millions in dollars. So it was $75 million.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then but then look at the figures, the numbers. You could see that if push comes to shove, the countries on the military will be outnumbered.
Okay.
Because if you look at Côte d'Ivoire had 25,000 troops, Cape Verde 1,200, Ghana 14,000. These are an estimate.
But we're not committing all the 14,000.
No, but you see, your military strength will determine the number of troops you deploy.
Yes. But Ghana is already quite significantly deployed in Lebanon and in other
places. Yeah, even Nigeria is significantly overstretching the house.
Yeah, internally.
Internally. You have the army operating in about 25 states. Internal security operation. And you have this burgeoning, insurgency in the east, the IPOP.
Yeah.
And they need to break that mandate sitting. Tinubu has deployed troops. So
internally, the fact that you can see them here doesn't mean they'll be available for Niger.
But it could be surgical operation whereby you send special forces who are highly trained.
But let me ask you, you have looked at military a little bit. What then will be the focus of the military operation? To arrest? To do what? Because you come into Niger, this is a foreign territory. There's French operations that they are protecting minerals.
Yeah.
So they are not quite interested in politics. Then there's an American group also there. So if you are ECOWAS and you get in, what are you going to do?
So ideally, from outsider perspective, the main target would be the airport.
To do what with the airport?
The presidential villa.
To do what with it?
So when you capture the airport, you prevent the ability to use the Air Force. You also prevent them from escaping. then you try to, get the presidential palace. Because you need to enforce an air blockade.
But why do you need the presidential palace for the air blockade?
Because they're holding the president in the presidential palace, you need to rescue Bazoum.
Oh yeah, that's going to be
bloody. But that's quite risky though.
But that's going to be bloody.
But then, beyond that, you also need to capture some strategic posts. Perhaps you besiege the army headquarters. It depends. So, on paper, the numbers seem to favor ECOWAS. But in reality, it's a very risky operation. And this is a division we now have in ECOWAS. It is the more prosperous coastal states under one form of democracy or the other, which is equally imperfect across board. And then the less prosperous landlocked countries under military rule.
Very interesting analysis. Very interesting.
So now...
So this is the rich South.
Yeah.
And they are all they are all thinking one way.
Yeah.
And the poor North.
Yeah, this one
is also thinking one way.
And then Niger, they recently turned free.
Yeah.
But then the question we need to ask ourselves is, how did we get to this point? Several issues.
Yeah.
One, we have poverty, we have insecurity across the region here. But then fundamentally, we clearly have a shrinking democratic space. Because if you look at leaders using the third term policy to entrench their position, and if ECOWAS is fixated on all this military coup, and overlooking, because we're having a similar situation in Senegal today, but Macky Sall is trying to maneuver his way and come for a third term. And the opposition,
I think he's abandoned it also.
Well, he said so, but his action does not support it. Now, Sonko is now in jail. So there's a disconnect between rhetoric and action.
Okay.
And ECOWAS is still mute about that. So when if there's a military coup in Senegal and you come to tell them, hey, go back to democracy, you are being unfair. So in the Condé case, people were being killed on the street. ECOWAS stayed mute. When the coup d'etat occurred and people were jubilating, and not telling them to go back. I mean, it becomes very, very, very difficult for people to accept ECOWAS. And ECOWAS, all the credibility is at stake.
In the Mali situation or the Senegal situation?
Across board. ECOWAS has a deficit of trust at the moment. But this equally offers another important opportunity for ECOWAS to do deep soul searching. So we can have two approaches here, a middle ground, whereby we can either do the soft approach, where you allow the coup to stand, but then within a period of time they must conduct election. But in that case, to avoid a situation in Mali where you have a counter coup by the same actor, in this case you can do what we did in Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde. For stability reasons, to prevent coup d'etat, we had deployment of ECOWAS troops still in Guinea-Bissau. So we could come to a middle ground, the military coup stands, given a time period to conduct an election, and then to guarantee that there will be no counter coup after that period, then there will be some deployment of ECOWAS troops within, the country, but not an intervention militarily, or one that is just to guarantee that there is a return to democracy and But they also offered the Nigerians first an opportunity to do proper conference or conversation on the way forward. Because there's the issue of French influence across the Sahel, which on all from data and indication is very negative.
But that's what they've been trying to fight for so many years.
But that is what the French is also, and there's this argument I've seen people saying Nigeria and ECOWAS are doing the French bidding. The people don't understand history. Nigeria and France have always have loggerhead in West Africa. Nigeria sees itself as a bona fide leader in West Africa, and then the French are seen as undermining Nigeria's influence
over their countries.
Yeah, if you look at just recently when there was this discussion to materialize the ECO. We saw Alassane Ouattara and some few presidents going to France and make announcement that the CFA will be changing to ECO, just to undermine or thwart Nigeria's attempt towards economic integration. So Nigeria is not doing ECOWAS bidding, but in this context, there's a convergence of interest. And in diplomacy, when interests converge, we work together.
So convergence of interest between Nigeria and France?
Yeah, in the sense that Nigeria wants to restore democracy, just to retain that big brother figure it has lost after the exit of Obasanjo. Successive government went inward. And then for France, restoring Bazoum, equally allow France to regain.
But is it not Bazoum who had begun the anti-French rhetoric?
Yes, he was. So Bazoum his case was more like the case of a reformer with a good intention, not being able to maneuver very well. But we'll get to that point and you see the issue. So, but then he didn't challenge. The challenge wasn't that strong as against when you have the military in power. So for French, restoration of Bazoum tend to give them another, opportunity. So it's like, we both have interest in the restoration of the ousted regime, but for a different purpose. For Nigeria to maintain democracy, purportedly, but to gain regional prestige. but for the French to restore the status quo and continue to exploit and benefit economically.
Mm-hmm. I get the convention.
But it offers ECOWAS another opportunity where we can now have a comprehensive dialogue. All ECOWAS members will have to sit, regardless of whether it's a democracy or a military regime, sit down, discuss the protocols. How do we ensure that the protocols are enforced? Because the main thing undermining ECOWAS credibility is the enforcement of its protocols. It's like the laws are very beautiful on paper, but practically enforcing them becomes a problem. Because in the, let's say there's a coup in Senegal today, and you tell them to restore democracy, nobody will accept it, because we were quiet when Macky Sall is doing his own now.
Okay, move on.
So now this offers a key dialogue for ECOWAS we need to look at. But we can also do one thing. Mm-hmm. The suspension of this member state can be made internal.
That means what?
In the sense that they will be invited to ECOWAS meeting, but will not have voting.
Okay.
Voting rights.
Okay.
Unlike the case where they are just not involved. And if I'm not involved in discussing issues that affect me, it's equally not fair.
Who and who are on suspension?
Guinea, Mali, Burkina Faso, and now Niger.
Oh, I see.
You know, it's like, you know, most of these international bodies, you have this observer country where they come to observe, but you know, so you could have the same situation, so that there will be a frank dialogue about the way forward, and then that will give us a solution to this problem of coup d'etat. But then, let's go here. Who are the actors in the coup d'etat? Mm-hmm. You have General Abdurrahman Chiani, the chairman of the National Council for Safeguard of the Homeland. Mm-hmm. You have his deputy, General Salifu Modi. Mm-hmm. You have General Abudu Sidiku Issa, who's the chief of army staff. And then you have the main brain behind galvanizing the people, Abdullahi Seidu. He leads the movement, M62, Sacred Union for. But then, the problem now is that, what is the level of command Abdurrahmani enjoys within the military? If you quite remember Burkina Faso, Doumbouya led them, Damiba led the coup. But because he lacked firm grip of the junta, within a few months, he was ousted. And that created another very, dangerous situation that could have led to civil war. So, but if you look at, Tiani only commands the presidential guard, not the larger army. He took the involvement of Salifu Modi. But then, Salifu Modi was being eased out of power and influenced by Bazoum, because he was the chief of army staff, but was posted to UAE as an ambassador. And his replacement was General Sidiku. So you could see that perhaps there is no that gel. There's no unity within the junta. So if he doesn't have firm command, would we see another coup, just like we had in Burkina Faso?
Is that what you are predicting?
I'm only looking at what another instability that could pose, because if it happens that way and it leads to civil war like we have in Sudan today, whereby Hemeti and the other guy collaborated to oust the elected government, and now they've turned their guns against each other, and Sudan is burning. So do we have the same situation due to his lack of influence within, which is very dangerous for ECOWAS? And then they also appointed a civilian prime minister.
Oh, they have appointed?
They have appointed a civilian prime minister.
And they call him prime minister?
Sure. No, just like, you know, most of this.
That's a French.
Yeah, the French system, the same presidential system. Mm. But then, does that make the regime acceptable to ECOWAS or not? We can't tell.
But it means the regime is doing some things.
This is more like, well, this is more like
ECOWAS halfway.
This is more like a facade of.
So they are presenting you a civilian head.
Sure. But then, this is another important actor. Mm-hmm. So, what is the relationship between here and the military actors? Is it that of convenience or not? And then, another problem is now we need to look at what might have led to the coup. There are those who said it was internal, mm-hmm. because there was this attempt by the ex-president, Mohamed Issoufou, mm-hmm. to limit the level of the influence of Bazoum. And if you realize Bazoum was trying to ease Salifu Modi out of power, so mm-hmm. perhaps he felt that Bazoum was trying to gain independence and trying to oust his proteges within the security architecture. Mm-hmm. That might have triggered the coup. But the coup went beyond what he had anticipated. He had wanted to use Tiani just to be a check on Bazoum. But then Tiani also saw an opportunity to capture power, and he also orchestrated the coup.
No, so the godfather who wanted the coup to be a check.
Yeah, some analysts
wanted an action that is a check, or he wanted a coup.
Some people felt that, you know, the military was made up of Issoufou's loyalists. Mm-hmm. But if you look at Bazoum's trajectory, he was gradually trying to also build his own power base, gain influence. So there was this belief that he felt threatened, mm-hmm. because his key man in the military was chief of army staff, but was sent to UAE as an ambassador and replaced by Abdul Isaka. So that was Bazoum trying to rearrange the power structure internally. But then, so they felt that he was using General Tiani as a check on Bazoum. But then Tiani also saw an opportunity to capture power, so he defied his ex-boss and initiated a coup d'etat. But then, he was also caught between the tug of war between his former boss and the French interests. The French have maintained a very, robust economic domination of these countries in terms of their currency, how they save their money. I mean, practically speaking, this is neo-colonialism and slavery.
Well, yes.
But then, what do we say? They said it is Franc-Afrique or whatever.
France-Afrique, yeah.
And then you pay some benefit of colonialism to who? Somebody who has come.
Okay, so make your point.
So it was like
the interest. You are talking about the interest balance.
It's more like an internal party issue that he's from the minority ethnic group.
Yeah, okay.
We'll come to that. So they felt that he felt bringing a minority person as a person from minority without strong political base, he would remain loyal to him to maneuver behind the scene. And then when he was in power, he didn't really challenge or pose any threat to French interests. But Bazoum in his rhetoric was gradually trying to move away from that orbit. So there was these two allies, the usual godfather in Europe and their clients domestically. Now the junior partner is trying to break away, make a maneuver. Then was like,
that means the French should be happy with the coup.
So the French would have preferred the arrangement whereby this guy Youssoufou remains dominant, so their interest is not threatened, and Bazoum remained the president. That would have given them that facade of legitimacy. And whatever they do, regardless of how exploitative it is still done within the context of the law. It have all the charade of legality. But in reality, the people continue to suffer. But then the coup undermines that. But then my question is, if those coup plotters are now chasing the French away and bringing the Russians in, are you not just replacing your slave master? Or are you fighting for it through independence? That's a bigger question we need to ask.
It is a good question.
But then this is the ethnic makeup of the groups in Niger. Because there are also about 53.1%. That is a very strong majority.
Very, very strong.
Followed by the Zabarma Sangwai, who are about 21.2. And then the Fulanis, 6.5. The Kanuris, 5.9. Then others. But then, being from an Arab population, it kind of makes him very vulnerable. But then, there's a statement that Ibrahim Traoré made purportedly during the Russian-African summit. It's a very profound one that really gives an indication of the reality on the ground. Not just in these Sahelian countries, but the larger West Africa and the African continent at large. And it is very simple.
Sure.
My generation does not understand this. How can Africa, which has so much wealth, become the most poorest continent in the world today? And why do African leaders travel to the world to beg? So until we address the socioeconomic challenges within the African continent, we make democracy less palatable. And as democracy becomes less palatable, they say a hungry man is a hungry man. Whatever comes, we go for it. But then, for the French also, finally, indeed, if you look at the fact that it is all military men plotting the coup d'etat, overthrowing the status quo, then it is the ghost of one man who they killed but refused to die in silence. That is the ghost of Thomas Sankara coming to hunt them.
Hunt who?
The French.
Why?
At the height of his reign, in his coup d'etat, he was said to be anti-French.
Yeah.
But he was not anti-French. It was anti-French domination that keeps him in poverty. He was trying to rearrange the balance of power. But then he was obviously killed with French involvement that has now been made clear, and there's evidence to corroborate that. So now the fact that he's serving as inspiration for all the military guys, then that is Thomas Sankara refusing to die silent.
Okay, excellent presentation by Bello. That's really beautiful. Okay, let's see what text message you're getting as we then try and wrap up.
All right, so this is coming from Victor Tay. He says all the coups in Sahel are coups against France and not against the government, but our leaders in ECOWAS don't understand geopolitics. Coming from Gusty Man, he says ECOWAS has been embarrassed. The truth must be told. The members are too weak because they all look up for the West because of their greediness and selfish interest. If you cannot deal with the tiny Nigeria, what else can you do? And this is coming from Nanaba for Asama. He says, it will be a very big mistake for ECOWAS to use military force to resolve the issue at hand instead of arbitration. It's all Africa affair and must be treated as such. The West will pretend to be siding ECOWAS and eventually leave them at the middle of the mess, which will destroy lives and properties in the end around. Africa, for that matter, ECOWAS must learn and be smart about it. And lastly, from Abdul Salam Mohammed, he says, good evening, Paul. Great program tonight. I was patiently waiting for Alas and Bello. It's an interesting conversation. We are constantly monitoring the situation in Niger. Africans must win. Watching you live. Antoinette.
Lawi Ibrahim Fataka says, I would like to hear the role ethnicity played in the coup in Niger. There is the assertion that the deposed president's affinity to an Arabic minority group made him unpopular amongst the military couple. Isaac Mann says, good evening, Paul. I recall you granted an interview with Archbishop Nicholas Duncan Williams, who prophesied about the rising numbers of coups in the sub-region ECOWAS. I think the prophecy is being manifested. Star Dako says, there are only 3 kingdoms in Africa, Lesotho, Morocco, and Eswatini. The rest are tribal chiefs. Ghana is a unitary republic. Forget about that allegiance thing. It's useless today. President Akufo-Addo can lead a referendum to amend the constitution's protection for chiefs if the people want and abolish chieftaincy in Ghana. Lawi Ibrahim says, great analysis, Bello. Looking forward to seeing how ECOWAS handles this. In all things, nothing beats dialogue. And lastly, Fusaini Sanders says, Nigeria is making a big mistake going into Niger. They should first think about themselves. Angelo?
Right. Arafat Watchers from London says she's watching us. Sure, we thank you. This is from Sir Bright Watchers from Tantra Hill. He says, an intelligence recently intercepted revealed that one of the coup leaders in Niger, Brigadier General Mustu Salubamu, was trained by the U.S. military and recently met with the head of the U.S. Army Special Operations Command, Lieutenant General Jonathan Braga, at the U.S. drone base in Niger. The publication added that African officers trained by the U.S. military have now taken part in 11 coups in West Africa since 2008. This is according to Sir Bright. And lastly, from Abdul Latif, he says, it's indeed a new dawn for the good people of Prestia, Huni Valley constituency as we approach the 2024 general election. It's a long message. I'll truncate it briefly to say it's with great conviction that we believe lawyer Theophilus Tibia embodies these qualities and is the ideal candidate for his crucial role. Hashtag a new dawn. That's it from me. Back to you, Paul.
Okay, that's a very long night, and what can we say? It's 23 minutes past the top of 11 o'clock. Thank you for watching, and thank you for staying with us. We'll be back with another edition on Thursdays. Good evening, Ghana. Good night.
Enjoy the fruits of your labor, they say. But as humans, aging and physical infirmity stands our way of enjoying our mansions and homes. It often becomes challenging, if not impossible, to use our stairways day in, day out. With portable American pneumatic vacuum elevators, PVs, you are assured of unlimited enjoyment of your mansions and homes. It's a self-supported elevator for vertical movement of humans and goods at homes and offices. The original comes in 3 custom-made models with wheelchair accessibility. Call it luxury, but it's a necessary imperative for vertical mobility. Do not let aging or infirmity limit you. Get one for your easy vertical mobility at home. It's affordable and can be installed in just 3 days without modification to your existing building. It's however easier to incorporate it at the construction stage. We also have traditional Fuji elevators and escalators for your high-rise buildings and malls. Visit Lifts and Elevators Company Limited at Sakumono for your elevators nationwide. For free consultation to call or WhatsApp us on 0200-535-515. Lifts and Elevators, the elevator people.
Yamawakwaba the bad Nadum Auto Fix and Accessories. Ahadie e bano KSC near Wakadia. Ubenya bi waha. Care biane ne how any new here. Yansu ye wo hwenim de fu a obeso anu yi amao. Nadum Auto Fix and Accessories ye dwumedie de. Eye 24/7 o. Ye siesie wo engine, wo brake, battery, yesesa wo tire. Se bano car wash dia. Je wo abefun fidie bi ti se steamer ye de horo car engine abra nsuo nko engine nim. Ye san ye detailing metre se ye betwitwu car no mu ba bia amao. Ye wi a ya san polish wo car na ma wo kama. Enye hwe no munku ye san to car batteries, tires, rims, any de keke kan. Manadum Auto Fix and Accessories Emma wo car ensi ne dedem na nwa adwuma ma wo. Hwehwe ye chira kwan wo dansoma na sorry dan ho a any KFC bon hwanimu e won kran. Se wo information anansem bi se bia 024-651-9369. Nadum Auto Fix and Accessories.
Betway is your gateway to a theme park full of gaming excitement. A whirlpool of wonder where your favorite games come to life. Where you can take to the skies with max payouts that reach into the millions. All in the palm of your hand. Visit betway.com.gh. Terms and conditions apply. Betway is regulated by the Gaming Commission of Ghana.